Hello everyone and welcome to Story Time with Kate. My name is Kate and today I'm going to cover interview questions part 2. This time I'm going to answer questions as if someone is asking me questions. Our first question was about tell me about yourself. You can review the previous video and have a look at all the questions in a way they are asked. I'm going to incorporate them again in this video. So tell me about yourself, Kate. Well, my name is Kate and I'm an early childhood teacher. So I finished Certificate 3 many years ago in 2007 through Cengage Education, and I started to work in the industry as developmental consultant, tutor, private tutor, teaching young children ages 4, sometimes 3, up to 12. I also decided to go for a diploma, but first I realized that I can do my bachelor. So this is how I ended up an early childhood teacher. I got my degree through Monash. I'm very passionate about early childhood education and care, and I would like to continue developing as a professional in this industry. Working with children makes me reflect a lot about what learning is and spend a lot of wonderful moments, but also it is quite a demanding yet very interesting job. Second question, why do you want to be an educator in our center? Working with children directly makes me feel very connected to current practice. I would like to maintain this currency. I also enjoy playing with children, spending time with them, and encouraging them to think, but most importantly to help them learn. I found that your center is very interesting and full of exciting advanced ideas. For example, I've seen that you are inspired by Montessori approach, or you can say Reggio Emilia approach. I looked on your website and I found a lot of very interesting, beautiful learning environments, and your philosophy resonates with me. Question 3. Please tell me about your current role. My current role is a role of a relief early childhood teacher. I work for the agency and I've been called to different centers, so I arrived early and I do programming and planning, or sometimes just run the program for a day or two. It could be a block placement. I work with children ages 3 to 5, but quite often I cover breaks and work with younger children too. Question 4. Can you describe a day in your life as an early childhood educator, teacher, or a room leader? So here you will need to talk about your day. So here is how I would answer this question. So when I'm working as a relief teacher, my day starts with arriving early. I usually arrive 20 minutes earlier. I need to prepare for the shift. I need to have a little bit of unwinding and focusing before I start my shift. I need to wash my hands, check where the exits are, and go through the orientation. So usually half an hour, 20 minutes is enough to get oriented by the staff. Usually it is a manager or second in charge or whoever was assigned to do the orientation. Then I enter the room and usually greet children. I want to connect with children. I looked at their routines, if it's available on the wall in terms of programming and planning, and I start to transition children to the activity or experience they are supposed to be participating in. If it's a free play, I keep walking around the room and extend on their learning, making friends and trying to introduce myself as a teacher for the day. When all the transitions are done, I try to organize a group time where I would have intentional teaching. So then, after intentional teaching, which includes storytelling, music, or reading a book or physical exercise, I will put sunscreen on if we are going outside, remind children to put their heads on. And this way we are continuing with the routine of the day as they used to have. So going through the day, I interact with children, set up play spaces, environment, solve conflicts, help to wash hands, or wipe the noses, model a lot of good practices, and of course facilitate friendships and teach explicitly through intentional teaching or play-based learning. Question 5. How would you describe your current supervisor? At the moment, I do not have current supervisor because I work for the agency. However, when I used to work permanently, my supervisor was a wonderful, wonderful director who was very experienced, and I learned so much from my manager, how to set up play spaces, sometimes how to do the rest time that is not a sleep time. For preschoolers, this might be a little bit challenging. My manager had a lot of strengths and wonderful qualities that I learned from her. For example, how to be kind, approachable, how to smile more, because sometimes I smile on the inside but people see my serious face like now, so I find this very helpful. I also learned a lot about programming and planning from my current supervisor, and this was very useful because it was during the introduction of the EYLF and National Quality Framework, so it was very helpful. Question 6. Why do you want to leave your current role? There might be many reasons you can use for this question. Number one might be grow professionally. You might say move closer to home. You might also say that this role attracts you. Yes, so there are many reasons to leave the current role. Better to focus on positives. For example, I can say that I want to leave my current role as a relief educator because I find that working in one room with one group of children permanently is much more effective. I can know the children, I can build partnerships with families, and I also can extend on their learning and promote deep learning. So these connections will form a circle of security, and children strive on this security, so they need a permanent educator. Question 7. At this point, what are your greatest strengths? So maybe write them down before the interview, but I find it easy to talk about my strengths in terms of early childhood education and care. Usually they involve relationships with children, so I find myself very approachable. I like working with children, I like listening to children, I like watching them play, I like their discussions, I like to watch babies exploring the world. I connect with every age group. I also find that one of my strengths is to promote learning through conversation or sustained shared thinking. I'm really good at planning and programming, so I can coach other educators as well. Another strength is to be creative. I can create experiences, and I have a wide range of experiences in the past that I already created, so you can call it teaching portfolio. I also am quite experienced at using teaching strategies. So in brief, these are my strengths. What are your weaknesses? So this question is usually difficult for people to answer during the interview. I will say that my weaknesses are the following, based on what I observed. I have a little bit of attention deficit problem, and when I was growing, I didn't really know it wasn't such a thing, and I just was talkative, chatty student, but when I was focusing, I was engaged in deep learning. The most important concern for me as an educator, and it remains so, is to stay focused. So with so many stimuli, so many events during the day or the term, I might get distracted, and I need to keep an eye on time, and my time management is usually very good, but I might get lost in experience with children, so I consider this to be my weakness. My second weakness is probably to be a little bit too passionate, sometimes enthusiastic, to the point that I have high expectations from other people as well. For example, if I work with other educators or mentor students, I might expect them to work as hard as I am. And not everyone is at the same level or at the same level of commitment or at the same stage of their career. So I also consider this to be my weakness. Question 9. How would you describe your own pedagogy? So this question is very important to get the job, especially if you are being interviewed for a position of a room leader or educational leader or someone who is teaching directly. Pedagogy is about art of teaching or your teaching strategies, but it also includes philosophy to some extent. So it might be worth investing in writing your philosophy, at least drafting it, and what you can start with is looking at Code of Ethics and EYLF, highlighting statements that resonate with you, and this will form your philosophy. So philosophy and pedagogy usually are interrelated. So for example, my pedagogy, and I'm gonna describe it to you, is based on the ideas of neuroscience. So I believe that a child's brain develops really fast in the first 5 years, especially first 3 years. So all the experiences that we offer to children are very significant and important. Children need very interesting, stimulating, yet safe and secure environments. So that's why I put a lot of effort in building relationships with children, supporting families and carers to look after children in the best possible way to ensure this sense of security. But at the same time, I want to provide environments that are exciting, wondrous, promote stimulation to this growing brain. It's very important to feed children well and provide them with physical activity, especially now times when children quite often are not exercising enough or not eating healthily or in lockdowns, which also might limit their activity. In terms of theories, I'm inspired by the theory of Vygotsky, Barbara Rogov, which is social-cultural theory. So I believe that learning is social. In terms of practice, this means that as a teacher, I make sure that children learn from each other, learn in small groups, learn from me, learn from other people. I also welcome parents' experience because they are also co-teachers of these children, and I invite their expertise. Children can teach each other a lot. That's why I make sure that they do have a lot of time to play together, because I believe that play is a vehicle of learning. It's a context for learning according to EYLF. I'm also quite inspired by many other theories and approaches. For example, Reggio Emilia approach, which views children as very competent and capable and incorporates 100 languages of children. So children do produce a lot of wonderful ideas, and I'm, as a teacher, also trying to support their thinking. That's why documentation of children's learning is important, and it was inspired by Reggio Emilia. So that's in brief my pedagogy. Last question for this part. In your own words, describe National Quality Framework. National Quality Framework is very important for us as educators. I can describe it as a document I use, but also as a framework that I refer to when I'm thinking about my practice. National Quality Framework was introduced when I was teaching as an early childhood teacher full-time, so I was able to really immerse myself into this document. But over the years I tried to connect and upgrade my knowledge and keep current, so I think NQF is very, very important framework for all of us, because it provides us with benchmark of best practice, what is expected. We also can use reflective questions that are incorporated in the EYLF. We can use outcomes, principles and practices of EYLF, or Early Years Learning Framework, which is part of NQF, to provide children with best possible pedagogy and learning and environments. I also think that National Quality Standard is a must to know for all early childhood teachers, room leaders, and actually all educators as well, because it guides your practice, and the 7 quality areas that it outlines are very, very important to check back with. So centers who are consistently using the Guide to National Quality Framework, subscribe to our CEQA newsletter, they show exceeding qualities, especially if they put these ideas to practice. So this is my understanding of National Quality Framework. This is the end of part 2 of the interview questions. The next part will be focusing on other remaining questions. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe.